Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the greatest rock and roll stories in the universe, all from the fans' perspective. It's Rock Stories with the Brummster. Now, here's the host of the show, my rockin' daddy, the Brummster.
Hey, what's happening? Welcome, Rock Stories with the Brummster. It is on Spotify. That's two M's, by the way. Brummster, Brummster. If it's just one M, get out of Dodge. It's not me. You want the real deal. You want the real article. We're here to have a lot of fun. Rock Stories with the Brummster. Real rock and roll stories, favorite band, concert, artist experiences, all from the fans' perspective, okay? We're not messing around. Yes, it's great to watch these cool shows where the actual rock stars are talking about the stories. We all love that, but we're saturated with it. How about a show from the fans' perspective? And we're bringing on real people, real fans, to talk about their awesome rock and roll experiences throughout their lives. And I can't think of a better show to do that on right here. Rock Stories with the Brummster. Check it out Sundays, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time at rockradio559.com, the Central Valley's new rock station, and also as well at Spotify On Demand on the Brummster channel. By the way, Spotify, $9.99 a month. And you can try it out for free, I think, for a month as well. But only $9.99 a month, and you get unlimited access to songs, music, podcasts, Rock Stories with the Brummster. And not only that, you get it for free, the actual Rock Stories show, but you can also have access to the Brummster's Rockin' playlist with all the music played all the way through, which I think that's pretty special. Check that out. Spotify channel, The Brummster, and then also as well at rockradio559.com. Every Friday from 5 to 6 doing your drive home. Every Friday, the hard drive at 5 with the Brummster at rockradio559.com. And also 11 o'clock every Sunday with Rock Stories with the Brummster. Okay, last week, great guest last week with Aunt Sue and all of her awesome Fans on the Run experiences, being over in England, checking out Abbey Road Studios, going and actually walking through where these stars were. And what a cool experience that she's able to bring to us. Well, I've got another friend who's on the line this week with his unique experiences. And especially, we want to say thank you for your service. United States Armed Forces we would not be free if we did not have these folks out there fighting for our freedoms. It's not free freedom. This freedom to rock out, the First Amendment, the ability to have a show like this where we get on and say whatever we want. That only exists in a free country. So thank you, the United States Marine Corps, your home for life, and a patriot. Thank you very much, Mr. Bill Bland, my guest on Rock Stories with the Brummster today. Welcome, Bill.
Hey, Semper Fi, Josh. I don't know whether I can match up to Aunt Sue's Abbey Road story, but I'm going to give it a whirl.
I love it. Your feet have been on many travels. You've walked 1,000,000 miles and many moccasins, brother, and I know that about you. Welcome to the show and rock experience. What's your pedigree? What have you done? I know that you've been all over the place, especially traveling with the military, etc. Some of the best stories I've ever heard are folks serving in the military over in Germany, stopping off and hearing some, kick-ass bands. And I mean, what are some of the cool experiences that you remember?
Well, I can, I go full circle on this, and start my introduction to rock and roll. My sister, Amy, my youngest sister next to me, I'm the youngest of four. So she would be the first sister, as we refer to her as, not the oldest. Amy was a graphic designer working for a radio station in my hometown, WKWK Radio in Wheeling, West Virginia. Actually wasn't working as a graphic designer. They had a contest, and my sister was a very good artist. And they had a concert for the upcoming concert that was coming, an album cover, what you would envision an album cover looking like. And so it just so happened that she entered the album contest and won. and she got tickets to the concert. So wait for it. The concert was, this was the lineup. Opening act was Bob Welch. Ebony Eyes, of course, was the big hit. Did a fantastic job. Coming right behind him, Blue Oyster Cult, and filing out with Styx, the Grand Illusion Tour.
Oh man, that's what I'm talking about, man. I mean, that was a hell of a headliner back then, and BOC in the middle of that sandwich. That's what a lineup. Wow.
Yeah. What an experience.
So, what do you remember from that show?
I remember several things about it. One is, that was my first experience with the cloud of smoke, as they say, in an indoor arena. So I was a pretty young kid. I was probably, I think I might have been 12, maybe 11 when she took me to that concert. And so I remember the build up for it. I was so excited for it, I'd never been to a rock and roll concert. Big deal for Mom to kind of let me go to the show, and felt that she could trust my sister in taking care of me. And, we went to shows at the Capitol Theater in Wheeling. It was a pretty small venue. I want to say the Capitol maybe holds 35 to 5,500 people maybe. We were fortunate to get them. At the time, the Capitol Theater, if you ever heard of it before, it was there was two heartbeats of country music. You had Nashville. We're talking about, this was a 100,000 megawatt station. You had the WWVA radio was out of the Capitol Music Hall, and then you had Nashville out of the Ryman Auditorium. So depending on where you live, east or west of the Mississippi, you listen to either one of those radio stations. So the draw was pretty big to get bands there, whether they be rock and roll, whether they be country acts. So getting the bands were pretty not easy, but there was a lot of big bands that came through there and big artists that came through there. So Styx was one of my favorite at the time. I really enjoyed their music, listened to it on the album, and, spent it until it was dead, as they say. And, I remember going to that concert and being so excited. And I remember sitting, this is a great experience if you can relate to it, sitting in the aisle, and as they passed the other cigarette down the aisle, and me handing it off, not knowing what it was, just passing it over. And so it's kind of funny, as a 12-year-old kid thinking, wow, this is quite an experience, so.
Well, looking back on my life, I had parentals that partook as well, and was a bridge between I didn't partake as a kid, but I took it and passed it myself many times. So I know what you're talking about, brother. Totally.
Yeah, very interesting experience. But the thing I remember most about early concerts, and you probably can relate to this, they seem like they went on forever. You go to a show nowadays, and it seems like they're very short. And I don't know whether that's just me, and maybe it comes with my age now as I'm older, but it seems like when I remember going to concert when I was younger, that the longevity of the concerts were fantastic. You know what I mean? It seemed like, oh my gosh, they played every song. I couldn't have asked for anything else, and now they kind of leave you hanging, it seems.
Right. It's all about just play the hits and get the hell out of here, whereas back then, it was like people want to hear the long version. Long versions existed for the folks who went to concerts back then, because you look up at that guitarist rocking out, James Young from Styx. I interviewed him when I worked at the Fox and introduced him on stage. And I'm telling you, those guitar solos, you're absolutely right. They weren't just in, out, do the job, we're done. It was like, no, go ahead and let JY go ahead and rock that thing for an extra 10 minutes and just take the people on a ride, right?
Yeah, exactly. You can remember how big they were, and then I can remember, going, after that, I kind of got the concert bug, got a little older, and was, kind of allowed to kind of venture out on my own, as they say, being the only boy of the family. My sisters, believe me, we're all Hellraisers. Believe it or not, I wasn't much of a Hellraiser as a kid. I was a pretty good kid, and they were the Hellraisers, and so I got to do a lot, and that really upset them. That goes with the older sisters. Younger brother got to do a lot, and they didn't get to do, what they wanted to do. But they built a new arena in my hometown, the Civic Arena, or not the Civic Arena, excuse me. It was the Wheeling Civic Center, and that was the big venue that we got at the time. That came along in the 70s, mid 70s to early 70s. They built that Civic Center there, and now we had a 12 to 15,000 seat arena, and so they could start getting these. Remember the Stadium Rock? That's kind of when not Stadium Rock, but the the venue rock was coming in. And the bands Foreigner and REO Speedwagon and you name it. It's kind of a laundry list. But one thing I remember prior to them building that arena, this is kind of a cool and a fun story. I had a friend of mine, Dale Stanford. He worked at Foodland, which was one of the local grocery stores. And him and I had planned this trip. We were going to go see, and I got to get this right, but it was Gary Wright, Dreamweaver. Fantastic. I love that song. Now, talk about a song with the 25-minute version. That's it right there, right?
You actually are speaking a language that the kids today don't know about. With the just get the song on your iPod and that or whatever, right? No,
right, and then you'll understand it. So Gary Wright, and I'm gonna say it was Peter Frampton. Gary Wright was a guitarist. They were promoting a guitarist themed show, and I'm trying to think of who the last band was. It may come to me here, but the thing I remember most about that concert, Dale, was my drive to Pittsburgh. We were going to go to Three Rivers Stadium, which is no longer around anymore. It's been demolished. Now the parking lot for Heinz Field, the new Steeler Stadium, and he was going to be my ride. And then he said, "Look, the concert was on a Saturday," and he said, "I got called into work Saturday," and he says, "If I miss another day, I'm going to get fired." I told him, I said, "It's Foodland. Who cares?" I said, we're going to see Peter Frampton and Gary Wright. Are you kidding me? So he bails on me, and here I am, no car, no ticket, no way to get up to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's 55 miles from my house. It's not a short trip. So I didn't tell Mom anything any different. I went out to I-470 and hooked the thumb out and got picked up by some guys from Moundsville, West Virginia, which is just a town south of me, drove me in the pickup truck, in the back of it, freezing, mind you. This is wintertime. This concert was in the fall. Froze on the way up, went to the show, rocked it out, had a great time, and I remember everyone, a bunch of people, a couple girls, stuff, said, "We're going to jump in the Ohio River," after, out by the parking lot. And I said, "Well, you're jumping in, I'm jumping in." So, needless to say, I took a dip in the Ohio River, and I long regretted that swim because I had to get home, and I didn't have a ride in particular to get home yet. And so I had to kind of bum around, find people that were kind of from the area, and did end up getting a ride, oddly enough, in another back of a truck. Got dumped off again and walked home. But I tell you, I was dry and cold when I got home.
Oh, what a great experience, man. And talk about faith, because none of this was real. It was like, all I know is my goal is to be at that show, and I could give a crap. Yeah. Nothing's going to stop me. Right, Bill?
Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm going to get there come, as they say, hell or high water. I'm going to that show. I had the tickets. What was I going to do? This was, you couldn't put them online. You couldn't sell them. How was I going to scalp a ticket 55 miles from the venue? How are you going to get rid of it? You can't. So it was definitely a leap of faith, definitely a leap of faith.
Yeah. And when you got home, your mom know any different, or was it just to bed?
No, none the wiser. So I kind of got away with that one. So it was a lot of fun, and then in your life, I think, you kind of come full circle with concerts, my children have learned to appreciate, listening to music, me hanging out by the pool, and playing them. I used to have the old one, not old, but pretty cool. It's old now, but 155 disc CD changer, I'd load that puppy up on a Saturday afternoon. We'd go out in the swimming pool and we listen to the Steve Miller Band and, geez, Foreigner and Journey and all these great rock and roll bands. And I really, really enjoyed that time. It's special memories with my kids, and then how they've come to appreciate music and bringing that full circle and enjoying concert experiences with my family. Now, as the kids were young, all the way now as they're adults, we still go to shows. We just recently went to, what was the last show we just went to? We went to, it's kind of not a rock and roll show, but we went to see Sublime and the Dirty Heads. It was fantastic over here in Paso Robles. But doing that, bringing it full circle, kind of a non-rock and roll band, we went and seen at, you'll appreciate this, a couple funny stories from it. We go to Porterville to the casino up there, and we go and see KC and the Sunshine Band, right? So I tell my kids, I say, I said, now this guy went broke because he had 100 people that he used to take on tour. Remember that? He would show up with like 10 or 12 buses.
Oh, yeah. He had a whole entourage, yeah.
The brass section was 30 people alone, I think. And so we go and see this show, and, I don't know what to expect. KC comes out. He still wears the jumpsuit. He's probably 60, 70 pounds overweight. Still got good pipes. Things good. Puts on the show, but here's the part you'll appreciate. He says, probably a lot of you kids in the audience are wondering who I am and why you're here. And he said, but I was your mom's Justin Bieber.
Oh, that is beautiful.
So I had to give it to you. That was pretty funny. Funny.
It's true. It's true. Yeah. I mean, when you think about it, Peter Frampton, KC and the Sunshine Band, at that time, the same way that people flock to go to a Justin Bieber concert now, in the same exact way, people were flocking to see who was going to rock the guitar solo for the longest. It was another world, but the thought is the same. They were the stars of the day. And they're still stars. To see it go full circle and see your family all come up and be raised right with rock and roll, brother.
Yeah, my son and I, we were fortunate enough to be able to go to a lot of shows. So he's a rock and roller, and for his 18th birthday, we kind of did a mini tour of not only California, but outside of California, and that was his 18th birthday present to him. And he got his Eagle Scout. I said, hey, you pick some shows, we'll go to them. We'll go to some concerts. And so we seen Steve Miller Band, went seen the Goo Goo Dolls, we seen REO Speedwagon. They come back out. REO always puts on a great show. I don't know whether you've seen them lately, but the lead singer is taking very good care of himself. Fantastic pipes. Sounds great. And that's the other thing too, right? You can tell when you go to these shows, like Steve Miller. My Steve Miller experience is, one of the first guys I really, really kind of got turned on to, dug the music, started going and seeing Steve, probably my first concert in Pittsburgh as a young kid. Caught him again in Wheeling when he came back through. My little town used to get some banging concert venues there. Molly Hatchet, all the big Southern rock bands, it's kind of in that Southern sweep of music. We'd get, Leonard Skinner would come through, all those, the Doobie Brothers, kind of that Southern rock genre would come through there. And, we were fortunate enough to get Steve Miller that came through there as well. And, and bringing that full circle, that's a concert that I went to as a kid, went with my wife. And then when we had kids, took the kids to it. And then as adults, going with the kids again to see it, think about that musical career of Steve Miller, 70 some years old. And, what is he, 72 now? And he sounds just like he was when I seen him when I was 18 years old. Fantastic.
Yeah, and his catalog is such that he can go up there and play 30 hit songs. I mean, for an artist to be able to do that, that's off the chains.
Yeah, I seen him at the Tulare County Fair, and don't underestimate. I would highly encourage people to not underestimate the fair act. I seen Eddie Money at the Tulare County Fair. Oh, he was awesome. And I'm so glad I seen him. When these guys aren't around anymore, you carry that piece of history with you that you've seen them. I think that's the special thing about music is that, you can listen to the songs and then when you actually go see the person, the artist in person, you kind of do get a personal relationship with them and a personal experience, and seeing Eddie Money, still could put on a great show, still moved around pretty good, and that's the Eddie Money I like to remember, not the end of Eddie Money, you know what I mean? And so that was a lot of fun to be able to see that. But Steve Miller told a great story at the Tulare County Fair concert. Hopefully your listeners will get a kick out of this, but he came up on stage, and he says, they got a karaoke booth next door. So I start the show, and he said, I went over there yesterday, day before the show. I asked him if they had any Steve Miller, and he said, they only had one song, Rockin' Me Babe. I got up there and I sang it, and he said, I did pretty good. And he said, when I put the microphone down, he said, I walked up to the guy running the karaoke booth, and I said, you might want to get a couple more Steve Miller songs out there. That guy's pretty good, and there's going to be about 10,000 people over here next door that really like him.
And
so I don't know whether
that's real. Like he really did that. Yeah, because he's got the gray top now. He doesn't look like the guy on the album anymore, but he sounds exactly the same. So he probably had a blast messing with that dude.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. But heck, I think a special concert that we just went to as a family, ZZ Top, the 50th anniversary tour. We went and seen Cheap Trick. I was the opener, and ZZ Top was the headliner. Paso Robles, again, another concert there. We live over in Morro Bay now, so that's a convenient venue for us, the Paso Robles Amphitheater. If you've never seen a show there, highly recommend to go. It's a great concert venue, outdoors, beautiful setting. Acoustics are really good. It's a nice vibe. But going and seeing that show, and listening to all the songs, I've seen ZZ Top before. But what a special moment shortly thereafter, Billy Gibbons dies, and I told my kids, I said, there you go. It's a piece of rock and roll history. You've seen it live on stage,
Yep, and he kept playing all the way through to the very end. And, his guitar tech took over for the slot. He was basically told, "Hey, that's what we want. That's what Billy wants. That's what we're going to do." It blew my mind, some of the stories about ZZ Top too. That they originally helped Jimi Hendrix and the Experience as a touring with them and going up there. I mean, the rock and roll experience goes beyond what we're seeing sometimes, and these stories you're talking about are real stories that they tell. We get to experience it with them. And you're right. Once they're gone, they don't have to be gone forever. They can live in our hearts, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We I kind of messed up there. It's not Billy. It was Dusty. I apologize for that. But
I did too. My bad.
Yeah. That's all right. Now I kind of just rolled into that. But and you're right. Being able to share those stories, that's how their memory lives on. At least, in my mind it does. And so, and we talk about, we mentioned the Doobie Brothers, what a great band to go see. I seen Doobie Brothers, what I consider the real Doobie Brother, with Tom Johnson, as the headliner and the singer, and he fortunately had that unfortunate and unfortunate for everyone, I think, was, when he got sick, and he had to, kind of give up the reins a little bit to Michael McDonald and but I really appreciated both of those concerts and the fact that it's two different Doobie Brother bands. And you know what I mean? You got the gritty Tom Johnson version, kind of the backyard barbecue version. And you got the Michael McDonald, which is a little bit more of the soulful, music, which I love both of them. Each differently, you know what I mean? I always say
kind of like Van Halen, right? We love both of them, right?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, for the true rock and rollers, they'll tell you there's only one Van Halen, and that's when DLR was the lead singer, right? And they'll say, there's no other Van Halen. And another guy will say, hey, the Red Rocker, Sammy, put it out there. He was good. He did good for them. And Sammy's got that, I don't know whether you've seen any of his YouTube stuff, but he's got that later little band he does. He's got one of the the guys from Van Halen and another guitarist, and they kind of do their own little thing. It's a really cool channel. If you get a chance to check it out, they got some good stuff on there. Great musicians. But yeah, you're right. That's exactly right. But in seeing the Doobies, the Doobies was a fantastic experience. The thing you remember about some concerts, right? Like the Doobie Brothers concert, that was at the Wheeling Civic Center. I remember going to that show. I don't even think they had a headliner. They may have, but it may have been like a local act as the headliner. And but I distinctly remember at the Doobie Brothers concert, everyone singing songs and knowing every word to them. It was just, it floors you, to think, wow, and we harkening back to Steve Miller, that's what he said. He was asked one time, do you ever get tired of singing your hits? He said, I never get tired of singing my hits. Why would I?
Well, what's funny is you get people like John Mellencamp. I saw him do an interview. I think it was one of those 60-minute shows or something. And he was asked, maybe Dan rather, or something like that. Anyway, whatever. He tells Dan, he goes, when asked, do you love playing your hits? And he's a painter. He's an artist. He goes, I hate it. He goes, I hate every second of it because I'm an artist and I like to just do brand new all the time and always be creating. And I don't like, but he goes, but I respect and love my fans enough to know that that's what they're paying to come in here and come and see. And they don't know the difference when I'm up there.
That's a different perspective, Another thing that Steve Miller says that Tulare County, he's a great storyteller. He doesn't move around much on stage. If that's what you're looking for, he's not your guy. If you're out to hear fantastic musicianship and a guy that can really sing and has great pipes still at 72 years old, go see him before it's too late. I've seen Steve Miller 9 times, and 9 times I've been floored. But he also said at that concert, he said, look, the reason I always say that I do sing my hits, he has a different perspective as he goes, I know how hard it is to make it in this music business. He said, the guy that makes my little signs for my lake house, he makes them, the Millers and those type of signs, that hang around the place. He said, that guy comes over and jams with me. He's got an entire songbook that's better than anything I've ever written. He's probably a better guitarist than I am, and he knows me, and I can't get him a record contract. So that was 10, 15 years removed now, before American Idol and whatever chances you may have had to do that. But that was always his perspective. I always will play my hits. I'll always do that, not only for the fans, but because I know how I got here, and that's what got me here.
And Steve Miller, Ben, Steve Miller always gave credit to the people that were on the stage. I always heard him shout out for rest in peace on the harmonica, Norton Buffalo, like all the time. Like he would always make sure that the people that were with him, that he gave them props and didn't just absorb all the fame himself.
Yeah. I can't say enough about live music. You asked me about if I had a military experience. I think probably the funnest or one of the most memorable military concert experiences I had was in San Diego. I was stationed in San Diego at the time, and I used to go to this bar called McDenny's, and they used to have this guy that played there. It's called the Blonde Bruce Band. And there was one guy on a guitar, Blonde Bruce. He was a fantastic guitarist, but he could play anything and sing anything, which was fun, right? You could go to the show, and he had this wireless guitar. He would go outside and play, and anyway, that was one of the memories I had about that. But they announced this thing, it's kind of our hangout, so we got a special invitation. I think the place held maybe 330 people or something, so, they kept it to 250 and then SRO, because equipment and everything. Special event. Didn't tell you it was, free ticket. This place was interesting too because it had beers around the world. So you could get a card and you could go in there and being in the Marines in my beer drinking days, you go in there and say, tonight we're going to drink Germany. Which was ambitious. You could go in and drink an entire country in one night and then move on to the next country.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so they would stamp your card, and then at the end, if you did all the countries and you drank all the beers of the world, you got a shirt or something. Anyway, so they have this show and get down there and line up. And there's a little bit of a buzz about it, and some things floating around who it may or may not be. And it was Eric Clapton. So Eric Clapton decides that he's going to do a military appreciation concert. Evidently, he knew the guy that owned or one of the owners of this bar, and said, I'd like to do an intimate deal. And the guy said, well, let's do it at my bar, and because they had a stage area in the back, and acoustic, strictly an acoustic set, played everything and anything you can imagine. Bringing chills to my arms right now thinking about it. And played for about an hour and 15 minutes, and that was it. And everybody just kind of looked at each other and go, did this really happen? And we were really here for this?
Right. Is this a dream? He'll pinch me, right?
Yeah. It was tremendous. It was a tremendous experience. And, that's a lot of, it's important, to know that a lot of these artists, they do give back, they are cognizant of the fact that, of that. And, so it's nice to see when they do that, they do recognize it.
That is so cool to see Slow Hand. And I bet you, like when he got announced or came out, like that was probably the moment that you're like, wait a minute, where's Blonde Bruce at? What's going on?
Yeah, right. Or I expect to see him up there with him. Wouldn't that have been cool?
Oh man, how rad, dude. That's so awesome.
Yeah, so such good memories. I can run the gamut. I could go on for hours talking about concert venues and what music has meant to me and some of the cool things I've done, but some great memorable shows. I guess a good finisher story is going to Lake Clendenning, Ohio. I talk a lot about the East because that's where I grew up, obviously. So in my younger days, that would be where I go to see the shows. And Lake Clendenning, Ohio, and I go to see the Motor City Madman, Ted Nugent, right? And we get there, and you talk about a very testosterone environment when you go to see Ted. It's pretty high energy, right?
Oh, dude.
So we get there.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is when Ted's in his heyday. I think he might have had. I think Stranglehold was out then, which he played. You talk about a song, right? We talked about when someone gets up there and does a guitar lick and plays it for, I think Stranglehold was like 18 minutes. Who does that? No one does that anymore.
And Derek St. Holmes, I believe at that time, if my calendar is correct, was on lead singer for him at that time. And so Ted would pop in and just go, yeah! Basically, right?
Yeah, he would do his thing. But how this concert started is what is the most memorable part of the concert. So it starts raining, and we're by a lake, Lake Clendenning. That was the concert venue. So you can imagine it's a mud bowl, right? And it's the pre-MTV Green Day turf battle. This preceded it. People are throwing mud clods at each other and just muddy, soaking wet. It's hotter than heck, So when the rain stops, it's going to be humid. It's going to be miserable. But boy, what a blast! Everybody just kind of hooting and hollering. I mean, crowd was on fire. And the concert starts with the curtains opening, the floor-to-ceiling curtains on an open-air stage, stage facing the audience, probably 30,000, 40,000 people there. And across the stage on a rope with a loincloth on comes Ted with the guitar strapped on his back. And that's how this show started. Swing from one end to the other. Hits the ground, breaks right into cat scratch fever,
You cannot beat that experience.
No.
I watched the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame the other day, and they're inducting all these rap artists, which, by the way, I respect and love those folks. I think they should get their own Hall of Fame, but I respect and love them to death and think that they're great artists. But one of the things I noticed that, these shows, you don't get that kind of showmanship, it's, yes, the art is there, and yes, it's special, But with Ted Nugent swinging across like Tarzan and landing and hitting the first note of Cat Scratch Fever, that whole place had to just be totally frickin' ballistic, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was bananas. It went bananas, and it never stopped. It was such a high-energy show, and Ted was super high energy then, He had the chip on his shoulder. I think it's when he figured out, if you ever seen the MTV show where, they get robbed of all their money, he had figured out that he had been taken for all of his money after he had the 2 top grossing albums, and he decided, well, that's not going to happen. I'm Ted Nugent. And I think he went out and had the following year had the next top grossing album again, but he was out with a vengeance and top of his game. It was really, really good, and that's another thing too, right? Seeing a guy that's at the top of his game, when they're so good, so into it, they got the energy. It takes a lot to do that show after show after show. I can't imagine, going up there and having to do that, but it's something I can relate to. Hard work, right?
Right. Work. When I interviewed Ted Nugent back in the radio days and hung out with him backstage and stuff, one of the big surprisers for me, if you will, was total sobriety. Complete. And you would think with all these rock and roll fans going nuts, probably drunk off their ass, you would think Ted is probably rocking it. No, actually his drug of choice is hunting. His drug of choice is adrenaline. And no doubt he is chock full of adrenaline, right?
Yeah, he's a teetotaler. That's right. He is. He's definitely a teetotaler. And you wouldn't anticipate it, wouldn't expect that, but a great old rock and roller, as they say, still can do it, and it's just fun to see. Really fun to see.
I love your stories.
It's a nice thing too, for people now that we have YouTube, you can go and find some of these artists, appreciate some of these artists, see some of their shows, see the energy. It was a different time, a different era, right? Go see a show now. I've gone to see Justin Timberlake with my family. He's a fantastic showman, puts on a great show. I mean, he's great. He plays the piano, he plays the guitar, he sings, he dances. It's a great show. It's a different environment, different time of life, different time frame than, when we were kids, or me, I was a kid, and growing up in the 70s and 80s. And going and seeing these hair bands and the arena bands and going and seeing that arena rock, era, it was amazing. It was amazing.
And that's our goal here. Rock Stories with the Brummster, Spotify channel, the Brummster channel, Brummster on Spotify, and 11 a.m. every Sunday at rockradio559.com. And of course, Hard Drive at 5 with the Brummster. You get to hear the tunage on your drive home every Friday from 5 to 6 p.m. at rockradio559.com. Just to kind of circle back as far as bringing people along. Thank you for sharing these experiences. That's the goal of what we're doing. We're creating a virtual time machine, theater of the mind, that our listeners can hop into and go back and vicariously experience these awesome memories as though it was happening right now, because it's gone forever. The past is gone. So we have photographs. We have, like you said, going on YouTube and being able to experience some of it. But folks like you, Bill Bland, for coming on, thank you so much. Coming on the Rock Stories with the Brummster show helps our listeners get into that time machine as well. And that's what's happening. Listeners from around the world right now are not just hearing the story, but they're living the experience again. And I think giving folks that unique experience back again, it's gone. They can never actually relive it again. But here at Rock Stories with the Brummster, the goal is that we can try to help them live that again as much as possible.
Agreed. It's a great thing you're doing with the show. I love rock and roll music. I'm like you. I love all genres of music. I love rock and roll music. But I'm glad that you're working to keep it alive.
Yeah, someone's got to. No, I'm just kidding. Someone's got to. What the hell? Might as well be me, right?
That's right.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. God bless you, and thank you and your family for keeping the rock and roll spirit alive. I can honestly say that I have never hitchhiked and froze my ass off to go see a concert. But I'm telling you what, I did today through your experience. Thank you.
It's awesome, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. God bless. Hang on the line for our engineers. Bill Bland, Rock Stories with the Brummster, right here, Spotify channel. Again, the Brummster Spotify channel, also as well at rockradio559.com. Until next time, we're bringing you real rock stories, real people, real experiences, behind the scene, pulling back the curtain so that you can vicariously enjoy these awesome rock and roll memories as though you're right there, theater of the mind style. It is Rock Stories with the Brummster. Until next time, rock on.